Welcome back to another episode of Napp Motorsports. I still have the vid, so I'm going to sound really bad, but we're going to have a little bit of a sit down. So I get a lot of requests or DMs or emails or whatever about what it costs to build a Miata engine. And the simplest answer to that is, what does it cost to build a house? What does it cost to build a boat? There's so many different avenues you can take to build a Miata engine that the price could go from $5,000 to $50 plus if you want to be absolutely psychotic. I'm going to walk you guys through today what my standard 250 to 400 wheel horsepower capable engine build, like this one, I can't wait to move. I'm going to walk you guys through what my standard 250 to 400 wheel horsepower engine build can cost you, starting at a long block, which is just this, all the way up to a what I'd call, like, Canadians all dressed chips, fully built, prepped, with turbo manifold and all that stuff, like this. Obviously there's a large price difference between the two, because what costs you money also costs me money, so I can't just magically make a turbo manifold appear. So let's get started with the basics. If you've ever filled out the form on my site, you will see, do you supply a core? That means, are you going to ship me or deliver me an engine before I get started? If so, I don't have to charge you to go get an engine. So for example, this motor was not in Corey's possession when we started the project. I picked it up from actually Bronson, big V8 guy over there. But there was a core charge assigned with that. I don't really keep cores here, so if you do not have one, I have to get one. And that cost that I pay gets passed on to you. Typically in today's market, mind you, it is June 26th, 2024, so this could change up or down, hopefully down, in the coming years. Today's market, a good VVT, which is typically what I build for people, is around $1,500 for a long block. So that's kind of what you're looking to pay. So that's long block, best way to describe it is valve covered oil pan, everything in between, nothing to the sides. So if you need a core supplied, $1,500. It is a non-refundable charge. Like, I don't take your old motor as a deposit unless it is the same motor. If you want to hot swap it, then we can work something out, but most of the times it's not the case. The core, $1,500 right out the gate. Next up, the basics for this build, which is going to be the machining costs and then my labor to disassemble, measure everything, reassemble, handle all machining work, like delivery, whatever, communication. My assembly costs are $2,250. So that'll go on top of the parts and machining bill itself. The machining costs for a standard build run right around $2,000. It's been kind of creeping up a little bit lately, but $2,000 seems to do the trick. So that's the number that I've been using in all of my builds. So it's $2,000 for machining, $2,250 for assembly, $1,500 for a core. Next up, the part that is not worth skimping on either, none of these parts are worth skimping on, is the parts list. So you can do this cheaper yourself. I do not build them cheaper because I'm not going to put my name on something that I don't have faith in. But a bare minimum parts list for a long block assembly, and this includes powder coating, parts, everything that goes inside the motor, runs you around $5,500. So now you're at $5,500 in parts, $2,000 in machining, $2,250 in assembly, and $1,500 in a core if you need it. So say you supply a core and you just need the other three list items. You would be at $9,750 for a deliverable, assembled, packaged, long block Miata motor. That's the bare bones. That's I don't build less than that spec of engine. You can always add more stuff if you want to add cams and whatever. I'll go through the list of what that includes in a second here. That is a fully built bottom end that can take 400 horsepower, and the entire motor, top to bottom, has been re-gone through OEM seals, fresh valve job, everything's been cleaned, block's been blown apart, oil galleys are, plugs are removed, oil galleys can be cleaned, freeze plugs are replaced, everything. They look absolutely beautiful, if I may say so myself. I have, every customer I have with one is a happy customer, so that is my bare bones. So to answer your question, the most bare bones engine build is $9,750. Yes, you can do it cheaper by yourself. You can cut out my assembly costs if you want, and you can build it yourself. I don't currently offer that. I'm going to be offering like a build in a box on my website, so if you do want to build one of like my spec engines, you can do that, and you can just order all your parts from me, and then I get them all, put them in a box, and ship them to you. That way you know what you're getting, you know it works, it's a tried and true formula, and I know a lot of you are very capable of doing this stuff yourself. You just don't know exactly what parts you need, so I'm going to try to offer that shortly here on the website. But you can cut out my assembly labor if you want to do it yourself. It does take some specialized tools, so there will be some costs there, but probably a few $100, up to $1,000, depending if you want to balance your rods. Machining costs, cheaper is not better in this case. I've tried 3 different machine shops, I think, locally. One of them is awful, absolutely terrible. Actually, Dylan's 2-liter engine build, they screwed us out of really a lot of work. They said was done, it wasn't done, and we had to have it redone at another shop. The other shop is pretty good. They're just pretty far away, so I don't use them anymore. And then now the shop that I go to for every engine build is right around the corner from my current house for the next 2 months until I move. But he's right around the corner. He knows these engines inside and out now because I bring him the same motors. We do the same thing every time, and he absolutely kills it. So find a trusted machine shop if you want to do it. Have the machining done by yourself. Like if you want to build a motor yourself. It is going to be expensive. Don't balk at the price when they quote it to you. These guys have been doing this stuff forever. They're going to do it right. If you find a good shop, ask around, ask some friends, ask some other people who've had builds done. People will tell you horror stories of where not to go. People will tell you rave stories of where to go. If you're local to Rochester area or even within like an hour, for machining in Rochester, I use Buck's Auto Parts. It's on Brighton Henry on a Town Line Road. Highly recommend him. He's very backed up, so unless you're a frequent flyer like myself, you're probably going to be waiting for quite a while. If you're in Buffalo, I use Northeast Tool and Machine for all my line boring work because my local guy does not have the bores for that small of a crankshaft. They do good work, very expensive, longer lead times, but they do good work, and they're great guys. I'm not going to get into what shops not to go to around here. If you do live around the Rochester area and you want to know, feel free to message me, and I'll be more than candid with you. I just don't need to put it on blast with however many thousands of you watch this video. So, that being said, let me grab my laptop, and I'll walk you through kind of what parts come in the build. So I'm not going to read off of this like I'm reading a checklist. I'm just going to kind of give you the basics. So forged bottom end is going to be pistons and rods. So I use SuperTech rods, Manley pistons, Wiseco rings. Depending what compression ratio you want or what your goal is for the motor, we cater your compression to that, and all sorts of stuff. I do go a millimeter overbore to 84 mil instead of 83. Technically makes it a 1.9, but I do it so that I don't have to deal with scored cylinder walls or anything like that. If there's any damage to the cylinder wall, we just blow right through it, and we are fresh as a daisy. Everything's good. You can probably get by with half over, so 83.5 millimeter pistons. It's become my thing now. It's just what I do. My machinist hates me for it, but these are all 84 millimeter 1.9 engines that come out of here, except for the ITV guy that's going to be a 2-liter. And I caught flack for that one too. So, bearings, so crank bearings, rod bearings, and thrust bearings. Well, crank and rod bearings for VVTs, I either use King Race or ACL Race. They are interchangeably good. Do not interchange them together, but using either one on its own is a good choice. I try to use King if I can get them. If not, I use ACL. King just comes nicer packaged. It's it seems a little safer. But King has a bearing shortage right now, so I'm using ACL. I used ACL on a lot of motors in the past, and they're all still running fine. Thrust bearings, if you have a VVT, you have to use Mazda OEM bearings. There is no ACL bearing for a VVT. There's no King bearing for a VVT. So thrust bearing has to be Mazda OEM on a VVT. OEM bearings are like 45 or 50 bucks. ACL and King bearings for the thrust are like $10 a piece. So, and they're perfectly fine, just not for VVT. They don't exist. Oil pump, I always use the Boundary Stage 2 with no shims, just 72 PSI as they come pre-shimmed. I have used higher shims for different setups, but for most of this stuff, Boundary Stage 2 already comes shimmed to 72 PSI, and that seems to be perfect. So, oil pump, Boundary Stage 2, just buy the bolt-in unit, good to go. Water pump, I carry them. I use cast impeller water pumps. If you are looking for them, I have them on my website. I'm in the process of restocking right now because you guys cleared me out. I should have more by the end of the week. I use the cast pumps. They're a little more expensive than the stamped pumps, but there's no risk of cavitation at high RPM. And for what you're paying for these already, just put the best parts in it and be done with it. Pulley and trigger wheel, I always use fluid damper. I hate installing ATIs, fluid dampers, because they're fluid filled, work over a wider range. Maybe not as effectively as an ATI in certain points, but they have a wider range of effectiveness, which makes them better over a higher RPM range like what these cars can put out. So, fluid damper, pulley with a 36.2 trigger wheel. Boffy makes a good one that I tend to use. Flying Miata makes trigger wheels. A lot of people make trigger wheels. Just pick one, pick the right one for your application. Fluid damper uses an OEM style mounting pattern. ATI uses an ATI specific pattern. I like the fluid dampers, and I like Boffy's 36.2 trigger wheels. Other options are great. That's what I use. New timing covers, just because they always get kind of decayed and nasty. I pop all the freeze plugs out so that we can clean everything in the block, make sure everything's all out of there. I pop the oil galley plugs out, so there's one in the front, one in the rear. You drill them out, knock the rear one out, and then you can clear all the Schwarf out from machining and blow through it with compressed air. Absolutely critical step. If you do not do that, you're risking tons of debris getting stuck in your system, and then when you fire the car up for the first time, you're going to free it all up, and it's going to blow through and destroy your motor. So pop those out. I replace them with OEM units. Same with the freeze plugs. They get replaced. That's mainly for aesthetics, but I do clean out the bores so I get a nice good seal on them. VVT gets rebuilt, and all of the seals are replaced with OEM seals. So I get this big kit from Boffy, actually, it's an OEM gasket kit, and it comes with everything OEM. No like aftermarket, no Felpro, no like Molly, no nothing. The only thing I do not use that is OEM is a head gasket. I use a Cometic. They seem to work better. I haven't had issues with OEM, but I do prefer Cometic head gaskets. Other than that, everything else OEM. I don't. It's not worth skipping. $5 here, $5 there is going to cost you a lot more in the end. So, all OEM gaskets, Cometic head gasket. Engine mounts. If you're pulling your motor, just swap them out because they're probably trash. I use AWR religiously. Everything. My 2 NCs have them. This car has them. I've got 3 engines that are going to get them. AWR just makes a great product, and I 100% stand behind everything they do. Their engine mounts are a game changer. I always recommend the softest durometer, so the 62 durometer mounts are the best. You don't need stiff durometer, like driving a race car on the street is the dumbest thing you can do. If you're building like a track-oriented car, you can maybe go up a little bit, but for 99% of the guys that are watching, 62 durometer engine mounts are the ticket from AWR. So if you're checking out on their site, I believe the code is NAPMOTO or NAPMOTO10 for a 10% discount. If you have trouble with that, let me know, and I'll find the right one. I'll put it down below also, just so you guys have it. So that really covers the bottom end. So I do weld the 10AN bung onto the oil pan, so there's no tapping, no nothing. It's a nice sealed weld the inside, weld the outside. Everything gets a fresh coat of paint. Oil pan gets painted silver. Blocks get painted black prior to installing the freeze plugs so that everything is nice and contrasty. And then for the head, they are mostly stock for my 250 to 400 range. It's just not worth spending the money because it's not the limiting factor. So I do refresh it. You get a brand new Gates timing belt kit, so that's pulleys, belts, all that jazz. New crank bolt, new key, New plugs, the head gets gone through, full valve job, and a valve grind if needed. I do shim the heads. I bolt them down. I have a sacrificial block in the basement that I use to bolt them down for flatness, check all the shims, put the right shims in, and then the head goes together. New valve stem seals, OEM. New cam seals, OEM. Valve cover gaskets, OEM. Everything's OEM. Cams are stock, unless you opt for a nicer option, but stock is perfectly fine. I do polish the cams if they need it. Most of the time they do not. That would be part of machining. Spark plugs, R8 coils, Super Miata coolant reroute is critical on any built motor, really any motor. It's a great mod to do. Keeps the engine cool. You don't want to blow up your $10,000 investment. So, and then the one aftermarket thing in the head that I do is valve springs. I do Cat Cams valve springs. They're kind of like the Volvo springs in price point, and they're a little bit better. Just the new batch of Volvo springs have apparently been breaking, so I've switched to Cat Cam springs for the last like 5 or 6 builds that I've done, and they've been great. So Cat Cam springs, they are single spring, no crazy like dual whatever, but you can rev it up a little higher, like 7,800 RPM, and you'll be safe. So it's just good peace of mind. I do a 10AN valve cover conversion, so I drill all the ports out, do the baffling, valve cover gets powder coated to the color of your choosing from prismatic powders, so take your pick. And that's really it for the head. It's really not a lot of work on stock heads, but it is all done right. All the valves seal up correctly. You should be able to start the thing right up first time with no like waiting for the valves to squish into place, which is not a thing. Just do it right, machine it right. And then the last section is really consumables. I ship every engine with 5 quarts of brake and oil and a fresh filter, so that you can do your first oil fill, and then you will follow the braking procedure that I will send you. It's Flying Miata's procedure for impending oil changes, but consumables are 5 quarts of oil and an oil filter. And then there's obviously some like consolidated shipping costs from every vendor, because I have to ship all the parts to me. That gets added on at the end. It's like $250 to $350 depending on what we're doing. A lot of babbling. That's a long block assembly. That's $9,750 ish, depending on what you pick. Obviously, I can supply more. I can get you a whole drop-in assembly. This motor was essentially built to be a drop-in spec. I shipped a motor to Alabama, shout out Victor and Cameron, that was drop-in ready. Just needed the wiring done to the chassis and it was ready to go. So we'll get into that in a second here, but for now, long block without a core, $9,750. Long block with a core, roughly $11,250. Depends on what I can find a core for. If it's more expensive, it costs you more. If it's less expensive, it costs you less. $1,500 is a safe number. Now, you're asking yourself, how do I get something like this, where it's all in one, excluding the intercooler piping? If you want, I can supply a intake manifold, throttle body, all the bracketry needed, your fuel rail, injectors, fuel pressure regulator, and all that stuff. So we're going to talk about this side of the motor first, and I'll flip you over to the other side. Fuel system, so injectors, gauge, fuel pressure regulator, and fuel rail with like the OEM plumbing kit from Radium. Runs you around $960, so call it $1,000. $960 to get this setup. If you want your intake manifold, throttle body, this track prep performance bracket, and the spacer to make this bigger, which I would recommend, you are looking at $725 for this bolt-on piece. I hate Skunk 2. I just want to put that out there. I despise Skunk 2. It is the most cost-effective plenum that makes the most difference. There are nicer plenums out there. I think like Giesel Works makes one, but it's like $1,300 just for the plenum, not including a throttle body or anything like that. Terrible company, but this product is okay. So I do recommend this on most turbo builds. It lets you make more power sooner, and it looks nice, so we'll give them that. But $725, $960. Now, if you want a turbo kit, we'll pan you over to the other side. So what you've got here is a Kraken top mount manifold setup. I did my own intercooler piping for this, so yours will not look as fly unless you bring me your car. If you want to go with the full Kraken kit, that comes with the exhaust, turbo manifold, it's still a little warm because I just ran it, and turbo, you're looking right around 4,500 bucks. You can get it with intercooler piping. I think it's like an extra 500, and it's a fairly plug and play setup. I'm not the biggest fan of their intercooler piping. That's why I made my own for his car. 4,500 bucks for this side, and it'll come with the exhaust and everything. It is a nice kit. It is my current go-to turbo manifold for less than 400 horsepower. We'll get to the 500 stuff in a second, but good option. And then you do all your own plumbing and oil feed and stuff like that. But you're right around $5,000 with intercooler piping. This is a safe bet. And obviously we can add stuff like clutch, flywheel, and all the hardware that goes with that. Is another 900 bucks. That's how this engine was. The entire assembly, if you want everything, clutch, flywheel, long block, turbo kit, fuel system, intake manifold, you're looking right around $18,335. $18,335 plus $500 for the intercooler piping, so $18,835. Obviously, that is a lot of money for a Miata. I do have a lot of customers that I'm very grateful for that have taken me up on this. I have a backlog. I have 3 more engines coming right now. I appreciate this opportunity immensely, but that is the bare minimum if you want a drop-in solution. You can go sky's the limit on these things, and one of these engines is actually that fact. I'm not going to give you a full dollar figure on the $400 plus engine build because he's the only one I've quoted it for, and his is pretty customized. So I'm going to give you a range, and I'm going to give you some specs of what is going into that. He has a set of cat cams for VVT, which are expensive. Shim under bucket setup, so that'll be it's more assembly labor on my end because I have to do a lot of shim checking and ordering and whatnot. Billet main caps. If any of you have watched Greg Peters' video, you know that billet mains are the secret for 500 horsepower if you don't want to blow your bottom end apart. So billet main caps include more machining costs because you have to now line bore to make them fit, not just a hone, but a bore as well. That adds about $500 in machining costs in my experience. You're going to need a bigger turbo, which sounds like an awful problem to me. He's going to be running a G3660, which is a big boy. I posted it on my story a while back. Both sides are out of powder coat right now, otherwise I would show it to you. And then also a bigger turbo manifold. So he's getting a Walton Motorsports full V-band. This thing is also out at ceramic coat. It's a monster beauty. Really nice piece. If you're looking to make that kind of power, I recommend the Walton stuff. External wastegate. So now you need another wastegate setup. There is no off-the-shelf intercooler piping, downpipe, or anything like that for that. So you have custom fabrication on top of that. Excluding fabrication, you're probably in the $25,000 range. And then you're not even considering transmission issues because the 6 speeds won't take it. Clutch and flywheel things you got to do. It's a monster, and it's a lot of power that 99% of people will never use. So unless you're cool like Greg and you can actually handle 500 horsepower, I recommend the 250 to 400 range. 300 horsepower to me in a Miata is the perfect amount. You can have fun with it. You're gonna beat mostly everything you come across, except for like some big ProCharge C6 or whatever. Anything more than that, like my 400 horsepower K-swap, I just blew the tires off it every time I punched the gas, which you're not really going anywhere. It just looks cool. So those of you that reach out to me, I know I get a lot of emails that I do not reply to, mainly because I'm bad at finding time to reply to them. But if you reach out to me for an engine inquiry, please watch this video first. I will put a link to this on that page of the website. You're looking around safely $10,000 to $11,000 for an engine build, a little over 11 if you need a core, and then higher if you want to add anything on. There are some special builds that cost less, like an ITB build is a little less intense. It's still expensive because I still use most of all the same parts inside of it, but an ITB kit is cheaper than a turbo kit. So there's some cost savings there, but base engine, $9,750 is kind of what you're looking at least for me. I do encourage that you do try to build your own engine if you are mechanically inclined and you are up for it. I think it's a great experience. I love it. I find it absolutely therapeutic, and I do it for a living now, which is weird. I know a lot of you asked me this question, so I figured I would put it into a video for you. I hope this isn't too crazy. This is going to be like a 40-minute video of me rambling, probably, which is insane. But yeah, so I'm going to put up some pictures here while I talk of previous engines I've built. They are all 1.9 to 2 liter engine builds, except for one 1.6 that I've built. I do build 1.6 engines. I just don't understand why you wouldn't 1.8 swap it. But if you want a 1.6 built, I am happy to do so. I have the tooling for it all as well. So yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you guys working through my weird COVID voice. And yeah, next few videos should be just 3 back-to-back engine builds, at least 2 back-to-back engine builds to start. And then once I get back from Miatas at the Gap, I'm going to start my race car motor. I will be at Miatas at the Gap. I do have merch for sale on my website. These colors don't match what's on the website. So if you do check it out, I'll put the link down below. Feel free to order it. I'll put whatever I have in stock on the site so the numbers are real. And then I have it all in stock so I can ship it out the same day. But yeah, comment down below if you're going to be at Miatas at the Gap. It is, today's the 26th of June. So we are leaving my house on the 27th of July. And we will be in that area on the 28th all the way through the following Sunday when we will be leaving. Feel free to stop by and say hi if I look angry. I typically just have RBF, resting face. I'm not actually angry. You come up, say hi. I will have stickers on me to give you stickers. I will be bringing limited stuff with me. I'm not setting up a vendor booth this year. I kind of really need a week of mental space from work. It's just been super busy, so I'll be bringing a few things with me like braces and probably a couple catch cans and things like that. So if you're interested in any of those, just shoot me a message, or if you want to order anything and pick it up there to save shipping, shoot me a message and I'll figure something out for you. But yeah, it's gonna be crazy couple months, so bear with me. I'm done rambling. I appreciate you guys watching as always. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe down below, leave a comment. I love your comments. I read them all. I do get back to them eventually. And I will see you when we start building the ITB motor.